Hello, everyone, and welcome to some truly terrifying stories. My coworkers and I live in constant fear of receiving that email. This year, it was my turn. I stared at the words from my boss with a dry mouth. That horrible combination of words. My coworkers, and I pray we will never see it. You have been nominated for Employee of the Year. For our boss, sending something so heartless by email is like pouring salt into an open wound. My eyes skimmed the wall of text that followed. I didn't need to read the details. I had worked here long enough to clean up what was left of the previous winners, and I knew exactly what this award meant. After the initial wave of blind panic faded, denial took its place. Let me explain. As strange as it sounds, this title is not given to the best employee in our store, but to the worst. And I was far from the worst. I didn't just meet my sales quota, I crushed it. I outsold everyone by such a margin that all they saw were my heels disappearing ahead of them. I sold expensive items almost daily, and I always made sure to attach my barcode sticker so that when customers checked out and the item was scanned, the sale was credited to me. We don't earn commission. Instead, there are other incentives designed to keep sales high. I never tracked the numbers because I knew I was consistently successful. The idea that I could be at risk never even crossed my mind. It's a system error, I told myself with a nervous laugh. Yeah, definitely. Something IT will fix in no time. When my legs finally stopped shaking enough for me to walk, I went to my manager's office. There's no mistake, he assured me, showing me his laptop screen. At the very bottom was my barcode number. Barcodes don't lie. He didn't even bother looking me in the eyes. In my mind, I was already being washed away down the drainage pipes. And if I didn't pull myself together, I would soon be washed away for real. I asked him to check the security footage. I knew it would show me making all those sales. Don't worry, he added with an empty smile. Either way, we all contribute to the company's success. By then, I think he had long since lost any sensitivity to the desperate pleas of doomed employees. As I left his office, I told myself this wasn't a death sentence. Not yet. I still had a month before management reviewed the final results and made it official. Before, at the end of the year, I used to receive a limp handshake and a hollow "thank you for your dedication." But soon, I would face what lived behind the usually locked door in the dark corner of the break room. I was about to learn what it truly meant to sacrifice yourself for the good of the company. The rumors spread fast. Kevin gave me his usual smug, shitty grin. Maybe he thought that if I was gone, he'd finally have a chance with Eliza. Eliza? I just hoped she wouldn't be the one hosing what was left of me off the floor and watching it disappear into the rusted, filthy sewer, just like the rules required. As protocol demanded, I began parking in my new, specially assigned spot at the far end of the employee lot. A faded sign read, "Employee of the Year only." It was the furthest space from the store, an extra 10-minute walk. In a month, that spot wouldn't be mine anymore. If I was lucky, I'd live to see next summer. Live long enough for some other poor soul's car to park there. Even if some coworkers hadn't heard the news yet, my car parked in that section told them everything. We didn't get too attached to each other. They started avoiding me like the plague. I didn't blame them. We all knew what came next if my sales didn't improve. It always happened the same way. On the last evening of the financial year, we gathered for the mandatory meeting. All eyes were on the unfortunate winner. The room was always so quiet you could hear their muffled sobs. First, they received a weak handshake from the manager, who muttered something about appreciation and loyalty with dead eyes. Then the winner was escorted to the break room for the corporate meeting. No one ever tried to run. We all knew it would be worse after what happened back in 2019. Instead, the winner always turned back, giving us one last desperate look, eyes begging anyone to intervene. And of course, no one ever did. Once the door closed and the soundproof room swallowed their final cries and pleas, it was over. The rest of us were sent home. And every time I try to suppress that disgusting feeling, that sickening relief that someone else had been sent to die instead of me. Cal was the nicest guy I had ever met. 2 years ago, he was the lowest performer. One day, he got seriously ill and could barely work. He must have thought that quitting or never coming back would free him from the contract. He must not have read the fine print in our employment paperwork. Honestly, if any of us had actually read it, none of us would have signed. Cal was a warning to all of us. You can't just quit this job. If they have to track you down, they will. I promise you, they will find you. So wouldn't it be better to go quietly? With dignity, with compensation for your family, instead of screaming and kicking in the middle of the night while they drag you out of your home. This year, Gina became Employee of the Year. In 2023, Gina, with the kindest smile in the world, became Kevin's target long before Eliza. And just like Eliza, she wanted nothing to do with him. I still remember that day, the day the final numbers were published. The way Gina's mouth hung open in confusion and shock. When she finally managed to put words together, she insisted there had to be some kind of mistake. We all stood up for her in front of management. I personally saw how many sales she had made. Our manager simply reminded us that barcodes never lie. The next morning, I was called in to clean the break room, to collect what was left of her, including her gold wedding ring. A week later, her family received a box containing everything that remained of Gina, along with a check for a large sum of money. Once the numbers are finalized, once your barcode is placed on that innocent-looking pink form, your fate is sealed. In all his years at the company, Kevin had never once parked on the far side of the lot. He had never even come close to becoming Employee of the Year. He couldn't sell a bottle of water to a man dying of thirst. He was pure malice and didn't even have the charisma to hide it. I never understood how he still worked there, but I couldn't afford to think too much about Kevin. I had to worry about myself and about this system glitch. Every time I found myself in the break room, cleaning up remains, that ancient wooden door became an unwelcome reminder of the one-way journey waiting for me. I started tracking my sales obsessively, working myself to the bone, pulling double shifts as the end of the month approached. When I finally checked my numbers, I couldn't believe it. I was still last. Somehow, on certain days, less than half of my sales were credited to me. I didn't understand it. I waited for a chance to get into the manager's office and show him the security footage. I wanted to prove something was wrong, that the system was broken. And finally, I got my chance. At first, I watched triumphantly as I made sale after sale, far more than were being credited to my account. For the first time in weeks, I felt relief. I had proof. I switched to the camera near the registers to confirm the codes were being scanned. I saw several barcodes scanned successfully and reached to stop the recording. That's when I saw it. I saw him. Kevin. I'll admit, it was clever. At first, I didn't understand what he was doing. Then I noticed the pattern. Even then, I had to rewind and watch again to be sure. That day, it happened with nearly half my sales. I saw him intercept customers before they could check out. While chatting with them, he discreetly slapped his own barcode sticker over mine. That night, I confronted him. I was furious. He just smiled, smugly repeating that barcodes never lie. He didn't care that he was sentencing someone to death. Hell, maybe he even enjoyed it. And that's when I realized Kevin had done the same thing to Gina. Stolen her sales. And probably to others, too. Damn you, Kevin. On the day we had to finalize the results, he had the audacity to place his barcode over mine during a massive sale, right in front of me. He didn't even try to hide it. He smiled while doing it. I chased the customers before they left the parking lot, and they kindly let me peel the sticker off. I shoved it into my pocket and stormed into the manager's office with the camera footage, refusing to leave until he watched it. His eyes moved across the screen. I couldn't tell if he was angry or surprised. His face showed nothing. Finally, he looked at me. He looked sad. At first, I felt relief until I understood why. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "Tomorrow, someone has to receive this award. There's nothing I can do." I silently handed him Kevin's barcode sticker. He studied it for a long time before returning it to me and saying, "Why don't you keep it?" At lunch, I told Eliza everything. And even though it felt good that she was just as outraged, I had already accepted my fate. I only wanted to warn her, because I was sure she would be Kevin's next target. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't stunned when my boss called me into his office that evening with the final results. I knew it was coming, but I think it's human nature to cling to denial, to hope, until the bitter end. We sat in silence, staring at each other. The pink form lying on the desk between us said everything. My eyes finally settled on it. It was already signed. Only one space remained empty, the place for my barcode. A series of black and white lines marking my death sentence. No one who ever filled out that form lived long enough to explain what happened behind closed doors. "I need you to place your barcode here," he said at last, "before I submit the form." I opened my mouth for one final plea, but he cut me off, speaking slowly and quietly. "I'm leaving the room. When I return, I need your barcode placed here." He stared at me until I gave the faintest nod, then left me alone. The paperwork was processed. The next day, Employee of the Year was announced. I'll admit, I felt a twinge of shame as I watched the smug grin drain from Kevin's face. The color vanished as he stared in shock at the manager's outstretched hand, thanking him for his loyalty to the company. And then I felt it again. I watched Kevin beg every one of us for help as he was escorted to the break room, claiming there had been some terrible mistake. We'd heard those mantras 1,000 times. Barcodes never lie. But I remember Gina and countless others. By the time the door slammed shut behind him, the guilt was gone, replaced by relief. We were safe, at least until next year. There is a customer in our diner whom none of us are allowed to serve. I work at a diner called the Lone Star, not far from the Carson City Highway. The name of the diner has, of course, been changed for this story, for obvious reasons. More on that later. Why do I work at the Lone Star? Well, kind stranger, because my life plans didn't exactly work out. Usually, if someone sees you working at a diner after graduating college, especially a diner in the middle of nowhere, it means things didn't go very well for you. But still, why a diner? Why this diner? I understand that you're probably not really asking these questions, but I believe they deserve answers. Out of all the diners around, the Lone Star stands out for one reason: the pay. The pay is insanely high. Within a 30-minute drive from where I live, there are at least 10 other restaurants. In most of them, the average wage is barely above minimum. At the Lone Star, we earn about $50 an hour on average. And that hourly rate exists for one reason, and one reason only. No matter what anyone tells you, it's because of him. My first day on the job went more or less normally. I had previously worked in customer support, so I thought I could handle whatever strange surprises customers might throw at me. I adapted pretty quickly to the contradictory nature of the rules. There were unwritten rules. For example, some areas of the diner always had to be spotless, while others, our manager couldn't care less about. You had to serve customers quickly, but not too quickly. Customers here don't actually like it when you rush them. Give them some time to feel the floor beneath their boots, to stare sadly into the distance, to mourn what could have been. You know, it is a diner, after all. It's the perfect place for that. Sometimes they just want to be alone. These vague rules applied to the cooks as well. Even if you somehow learned to cook as well as Marco Pierre White, the rule was simple: keep it to yourself. Your job was to make food as average as possible, classic fine but not amazing. Just enough so customers understand why the food is so cheap. That's why they come here. After a few weeks, I felt extremely confident in my position. If you wanted true mediocrity, you came to me. Most customers just wanted coffee and dessert delivered at a moderate speed with a semi-predictable frequency of waiter visits. I'm not someone who enjoys subtlety, so one day I decided to ask my manager about it, right in the middle of a shift. I didn't want to damage our relationship, but I was incredibly curious. They do say you shouldn't look a gift horse in the mouth, but still, why $50 an hour? She didn't even look up from the cash register as she methodically counted the day's earnings. Your job, she said, is to carefully follow all the rules. You'd better follow them perfectly. I frowned. Right. You think I'm joking? She continued. No, ma'am. Why did I even bring this up? I just think, I said awkwardly, that you're doing something really big here. Bigger than you realize. God, my social skills are awful. Add that to the list of moderate mediocrity. She stopped what she was doing and fixed me with a stern look. I don't run this place, she said, but following the rules here guarantees your safety. I'm sorry. Yes, I'm your employer, and I pay you well, but you need to understand, much more is happening here than you think. Much more than this diner. She glanced at the clock and sighed. I usually save this speech for later, but you caught me off guard. So here's another rule. If you ever feel like you can't follow the instructions precisely, without objections and without questions, then you should leave. You leave, and that's it. After that, the conversation ended. I tried to find another opportunity to ask what she meant, but she completely shut me out. And you know what? That was fine. If she wanted me to keep my head down and just do my job, I could handle that. I did my job well. I had normal small talk with customers. My coworkers were incredibly friendly. I was paid well. I had found a place to hide from the failures of my life. A place where I could start building a future. I think it was a Saturday when I first noticed him. He was sitting in the far corner of the diner. I have no idea how long he had been sitting there, waiting, though he certainly looked patient. I had a strange suspicion that the waitstaff had been ignoring him for a long time. I couldn't even remember seeing him walk in. Brown corduroy shirt, short hair, around 50 years old, a calm smile, a completely normal-looking man. I started walking straight toward him to take his order and immediately felt a tight grip on my arm. It was Melanie, my manager. She grabbed me so hard that I dropped my notepad. Her fingers dug into my forearm, pinching my skin. Important rule, she said. You don't read our rule chat, do you? Well, this is the most important rule. Okay. That man, she said, pointing to the one who had caught my attention. The one in the corner. He's a customer. Her grip tightened. It hurt. It felt like she was taking something out on me. You do not approach him. You do not speak to him. But you can yell something at him from the other side of the room if you want, she continued. Though I can't imagine why you would. But you do not approach him, and you do not take his order. Or what? I asked. She exhaled through her nose and shook her head. It's different every time, she said. But you won't like it. I watched him from the distance I was allowed. It was hard not to. Unlike the other customers, he didn't give off the feeling that he was there to be alone, to remember something, or to sit with a plate of eggs as part of some comfort ritual. Instead, I had the distinct feeling that he was simply curious. My shift ended soon after, so I never had the chance to see him leave. Still, the experience of encountering him and the knowledge of the rule associated with him left me with a strange feeling that lingered with me on the way home. Relaxing wasn't easy after that. I didn't care that the diner was located in the middle of nowhere. It was actually comforting to look up at the empty sky scattered with stars, to watch them shimmer and shine, and sometimes even streak past. I made a wish that everything in my life would remain simple, that nothing would change. Usually he appeared once a month, during the rare moments when I managed to see him at all. I tried asking my manager strange questions. Who is he? Where does he come from? Has anyone ever spoken to him? I always received the same mechanical answers. I don't know. I don't know. And I don't know. If you're scared, she would add, you can quit. Then, by sheer coincidence, one day my manager got sick. My coworkers and I had to convince her to leave early during her shift. Unfortunately, her illness happened at the end of the month, the time when our client usually appeared. And of course, he was there. He arrived shortly after she went home. The other waiters and waitresses working the floor knew perfectly well that he was present, and they knew exactly what to do whenever he showed up. Every single one of them knew to stay away from him. Still, driven by an unshakable curiosity that I simply couldn't get rid of, I decided to take the risk. I shouted across the diner, "Hello, what brings you here?" He turned his head from his fixed position and cupped a hand to his ear. "What brings you here?" I shouted again, much louder this time, drawing a few strange looks from the other customers. To my surprise, he answered. I don't know why I expected his voice to sound insane or demonic. Maybe it was the fear Melanie had planted in my mind. But his voice sounded exactly like he looked. "I'm sorry, dear," he said. "I'm afraid I don't understand what you're talking about. Could you come over here and ask me again?" No, thank you. I don't mean to be rude," he continued, "but it feels like my ears haven't worked properly in a very long time." That was the end of the conversation. I returned my attention to the other guests. As always, he eventually disappeared, quietly. No bell on the door rang. No footsteps. Nothing. Our conversations about him afterward were always very brief. He was here, and now he's gone. Only sometimes did someone add, "Yeah, that was a little strange." It took me some time to understand where my boldness had come from, where I'd found the nerve to speak to him. The truth is, I was afraid of him, afraid of his presence, afraid of all the questions surrounding him. His existence disrupted the small, perfect little world I thought I had built for myself in that diner. From time to time, I noticed Melanie speaking every couple of weeks with a sharply dressed man who looked like some kind of agent. State police officers and people in identical uniforms regularly stopped by the diner. I rarely paid much attention to it. I simply noticed it in passing. One day, while I was wiping down tables, Melanie approached me. "Hey," she said, "I want you to sit in on a meeting with our superiors, if you have time." Our superiors? Yeah, come on. From the look in her eyes, I understood what she really meant. Questions are bad. Thanks for the reminder. We walked in her office and sat down at the table. Across from us was a man in a sharply tailored suit, wearing a thin earpiece. The table in front of him was cluttered with a messy stack of notes, papers, and documents. He studied me carefully, his eyes moving slowly from head to toe, like a deer staring into headlights, completely unconcerned with how uncomfortable it made me feel. Then he turned to Melanie. "How long has she been here?" he asked, his voice carrying a rough Western accent. 6 months, she said. "Do you trust her?" "I trust her." His eyebrows lifted slightly, as if to say very well. "Well then," he continued, "apparently last week you received a visit from the wandering man. He pointed at me. Weren't here, but you got his attention. Focus on me," he said. "Tell me everything." The man, the agent, noticed the confusion in my eyes. "Oh God," he said. "You didn't tell this girl anything, did you?" "Sir," Melanie said, "I know this sounds strange, but personally I feel like her curiosity is tearing her apart. I thought it would be better." "The wandering man," the agent interrupted, "is our nickname for the man who regularly sits in the corner of your lovely little establishment. Or rather, your very important little government establishment." "Excuse me?" I asked. "Government? That's right. Congratulations, ma'am. You are participating in a government operation. The wandering man isn't just a catchy nickname. It's our legal classification for this complex little problem, a phenomenon we discovered many years ago. Back then, he simply wandered through remote areas, asking unsuspecting strangers harmless questions. Overall, it was fine. Strange, sure, but nothing illegal. However, sometimes something happened. Because of him. Strange things. Terrifying things. I noticed Melanie shifting uneasily as the agent painted this picture. Well, I said, if you understand all this, why don't you just take him? You've got him right there. No, the agent replied. Not because we don't want to, but because it may not be safe. The warm, comforting image of the diner I had built in my mind began to crumble. We have reason to believe, he said, that he came to us. After that, I stopped attending meetings with the agent. Not because I was forbidden, but because I didn't want to know anymore. My curiosity vanished. In its place came plain, ordinary fear. All those agents and government officials became constant reminders of what my job at the diner really was. Government personnel mostly appeared near the end of the month, around the time the wandering man usually came. And when he did appear, they did nothing except watch him. From the farthest tables in the room, carefully taking notes in their notebooks, he always behaved the same way. He simply sat there. He never gave either them or our employees a chance to start a conversation. Speaking of employees, after my first month, Melanie once told me that staff turnover at this diner was unbelievably high. At the time, knowing how much everyone was paid, it made absolutely no sense to me. Now, 7 months after starting the job, working alongside an entirely new group of cooks, waiters, and waitresses, I had seen with my own eyes just how true her words were. None of those who left ever gave a reason, but I'm certain it had everything to do with what this diner really was. And apparently, it didn't sit well with them. I stayed. Not because of the pay. Honestly, I don't even know why I stayed. We had a new batch of employees now. For the most part, they understood all the rules and conditions. Those who couldn't suppress their curiosity were filtered out. And then Malcolm arrived. It was only his first week. He was perceptive, overly enthusiastic. He always finished his tasks quickly and then asked for more. He learned everything there was to learn here. He wanted to be as helpful and pleasant as humanly possible. I think the paycheck for someone his age was simply too tempting. Melanie and I did everything we could to make him behave like everyone else. There are strange things in this diner, I told him. Rules you'll have to follow without thinking about them. Clear, unchanging, non-negotiable rules, like the law of gravity. He nodded. In that moment, I truly believed he understood. If this doesn't suit you, I continued, or if you can't control your curiosity, then you shouldn't work here. Every time I saw the wandering man sitting in the corner at the far table while we were training new employees, I felt a knot in my stomach. I'm sure Melanie felt the same way. On those days, Mel and I worked the register. If we saw anyone heading toward him, we grabbed them by the elbow. And then it was Malcolm. I reacted instinctively, roughly grabbing his forearm, just like Melanie had grabbed mine when I first started. He flinched in surprise. Remember that little conversation we had about the rules? I asked. He nodded timidly, as if he already thought he was in trouble. I pointed to the man sitting at the far table, wearing a brown corduroy jacket, staring into nothingness. There is absolutely no reason for you to be near him, I said. Under no circumstances will you serve that man. Don't approach him. Don't speak to him. Pretend he doesn't exist. Malcolm lifted the trash bag he was holding in his left hand. In my nervousness, I hadn't even noticed when he'd picked it up. I'm just doing my job, ma'am, he said. But I understand. Then he walked out the front door with his awkward, slightly bouncy stride. The dumpster wasn't as close as we would have liked, so I appreciated that he'd taken the task upon himself. I turned to look at the wandering man. That day, the diner was full of agents, every one of them seated like ordinary customers. The man wasn't usually talkative, but that day was an unusual exception. "Officers," he said, "if you have any questions, feel free to join me at my table and ask them." The agents responded mostly with muffled chuckles. "Seriously," he continued, "if you sit next to me, I'll tell you everything." Truly. They laughed even harder, but no one took the bait. "Still," he continued meaningfully, "I know you're curious. I know you're taking notes in your notebooks. I know you talk about me. I know you built this place for me." As I stood there, stunned by the fact that he was speaking so much for the first time ever, I heard the bell ring. The back door, one we rarely used, had opened. Malcolm stepped inside, wiping his hands. That door was right next to the table where the wandering man sat. Everything happened very quickly, and yet for me, it unfolded agonizingly slowly, like there was a single second in which I could have intervened. The wandering man abruptly ended his monologue and adopted a completely new demeanor. He began playing the role of a tired, miserable customer. "I've been here 30 times," he said in a pitiful tone, "and every single time this restaurant has terrible service." As Malcolm passed by, instinct took over. He pulled his notepad from his chest pocket and turned toward the man. "Hey, I'm here," Malcolm said. "I'll take your order. I'll make sure they get it. What would you like?" Then Malcolm froze. The expression on the wandering man's face shifted into something like a Cheshire cat's grin. His neck tensed and twitched, as if he were experiencing some kind of joy. Then the wandering man stood up, and they were gone. Both of them, Malcolm and the man, simply vanished, as if they'd never been there at all. The madness of what had just happened was broken by agents shouting into their radios. "Threat level black. A civilian life has been compromised. Repeat, civilian in danger." And that was it. Melanie left the diner a few days later. She wasn't angry with me. She told me she'd always known she would leave after the 10th disappearance. Why she chose that number, I have no idea. After that incident, all I could do was keep working. On the way home, or during my lunch breaks, I looked up at the stars and made the same wish every time. That Malcolm would come home, that he would return to wherever he'd been taken from. Talking to the agents brought me no comfort. The conversation was short and simple. "Where did he take him?" I asked. "He's gone," they replied. After everything that happened, I found comfort in only one thing. It was a lesson that I needed to be even more vigilant, to try even harder, especially on the days when the wandering man comes to our diner. I was the only waitress, no exceptions. I knew the agents didn't like it. None of them ever said it to me directly, but I could tell they were learning something new about him. Every time he took someone, our establishment became a zoo to them, a place where they could study a specific animal. All they ever did was watch him sit there or wait for him to do something else. Then came the 3-day period at the end of the month, the time when he usually appeared. What he finally did, it wasn't what I expected. For the first time, I saw the wandering man walk straight through the front door, late at night, near the end of my shift. I stood frozen behind the register as he took step after step, closing the distance between us. And then he was there, standing right in front of me. I was certain, absolutely certain that I was about to die. He smiled. "Don't worry," he said. "I have my own little set of rules I play by." I didn't say a word. "I know you were curious about me," he continued. "I admired that from the moment you first spoke to me. Careful curiosity is a wonderful thing to see in a person, especially among a species as reckless as yours." Please just leave," I whispered. "I'd like to answer your question about why I came here," he said calmly. "I'm sure you're curious why I'm here, aren't you?" "I'm not interested anymore," I said. "I swear. I don't care." He laughed. "The answer is painfully simple. This little game, this little farce I play, it's just incredibly fun. Please don't kill me. Please. You really do have a beautiful planet," he said softly. I'll be back again soon. I promise. Give me a month. Maybe 2 this time. He gave me a sincere, kind smile. I'll come back with a new game. And then he was gone. It took me a moment to realize there was a cake box sitting on the counter beside me. Maybe it had been there the whole time. Maybe it had appeared the moment he left. I opened the box. Inside was Malcolm's head, his face completely empty of expression. It rested on a bed of flowers, as if he'd tried to create some kind of arrangement, without truly understanding how it should look. Written above the horrific display, in almost childlike handwriting, were the words, "I brought him back, just like you wanted." The worst part about working at a diner in the middle of nowhere is realizing that there's nowhere left to run. Every part of our planet is covered by stars and open sky. Now, when I look up, I no longer feel that beautiful sense of wonder. Instead, there's only one thought in my mind. Someone could come for us at any moment. Thank you for watching. Write in the comments what you think about these stories, whether you like them or not. Thanks again, and until the next creepy stories.